So if you tuned in for the last video, you know we talked about the story of the shooting of Rayshard Brooks by an Atlanta police officer. Now, if you didn't tune in for that video, I'll put a card up here at the top of the video. You can click to link you to that, and you can get all the information on what exactly happened. And we have links there that tell you the whole story behind this shooting. Now, as we talked about, just to summarize, that this was a mostly peaceful encounter with these police officers for around 40 minutes until Rayshard Brooks resisted arrest while he was being handcuffed and hit one of the officers, took off running, and went to shoot a taser at Officer Rolfe, and Rolfe shot and killed him. Now, as we discussed, there were 40 minutes of peaceful encounter and just seconds of decision making on the officer's part, to determine if he needed to shoot Brooks or not. And you could make arguments as to whether or not he should have resorted to firing his weapon there, whether his life was in danger or not. Brooks whips around, points something at him. Is it a taser? Did he get the other officer's gun? There's so many factors to take into account. He also should take into account that there were civilians nearby and their vehicles. I believe one of the vehicles was hit. So many things, but nonetheless, we are now at the point where the charges are being filed against the officer. So let's take a look at what exactly is being done here. So the Atlanta officer is charged with murder in Rayshard Brooks' death, and the second officer, Officer Brosnan, is also being charged. So, Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard announced that warrants have been issued in the fatal shooting of Rayshard Brooks. Now former Atlanta police officer Garrett Rolfe, who fired his service weapon at Brooks, will be charged with felony murder. Felony murder. We'll get to that in a second. Among the other 10 charges, he faces up to life in prison or the death penalty if convicted on the felony murder charge. The other charges include multiple counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, criminal damage, and multiple charges for violations of oath of office. Howard said Rolfe kicked Brooks while he lay on the ground and that the officer with him, Devin Brosnan, stood on Brooks' shoulders as he struggled for life Friday night. Brosnan faces 3 charges, including aggravated assault for standing on Brooks' shoulder. The other 2 charges relate to the violations of oath for standing on the shoulder and for failing to render timely medical aid. He faces 20 years in prison. Brooks never presented himself as a threat, Howard said. Prosecutors reviewed 8 videos from the night Brooks was fatally shot. The decision to initiate charges by the Fulton County DA's office is irrational and obviously based on the factors that should have nothing to do with the proper administration of justice. This was not a rush to judgment, this was a rush to misjudgment. Rolfe's attorney said that Officer Rolfe is well known in the courts. There is no compelling reason to bring any charges against them before the GBI has completed its investigation and published its findings. In a statement, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation said it was not aware of Howard's plan to announce the charges. We're in the process of conducting this investigation. Although we've made significant progress, we have not completed our work. Our goal in every officer involved shooting case we are requested to review is to complete a thorough, impartial investigation before we submit the file to the DA's office. The GBI was not aware of today's press conference before it was conducted. We are not consulted on the charges filed by the district attorney. Despite today's occurrence, GBI will complete its mission. Okay, so we'll continue reading here in a bit, but just a bunch to unpack there. He's being convicted on a felony murder charge. A felony murder charge, as it says there, he could face the death penalty. Are you telling me when you watch this entire encounter between the officer and Rayshard Brooks that you think the officer deserves the death penalty for this? Are you kidding me? And to call it a felony murder charge, that means that whether or not the murder was intentional, the underlying murder had to result from a felony being committed. What felony did the officer commit there? What felony occurred in that completely peaceful procedural encounter that happened when all of a sudden Brooks started resisting arrest, punched the officer in the face, knocked him to the ground, stole his taser, and ran off? What part of that did the officer commit a felony? And also, with regards to, Officer Rolfe and Officer Brosnan, they're saying he kicked him and, stood on his shoulder while he pleaded for life. Okay, first off, we have video of the entire thing. They haven't released, at least as of now when I'm making this, they haven't released anything showing that I've seen. If so, I'm very curious to know Was Officer Rolfe going up and kicking the crap out of this guy on the ground to beat him up? Or did he walk over because this guy just attacked them? Less than a minute ago, this guy attacks them. Does he go over and nudge him with his foot to see if he's going to... Let's say he doesn't go over and hit him with his foot. He walks up and he gets down on him, say, "Are you okay?" "Oh, look, your shots didn't actually stop him and put him down. The guy attacks you, takes your weapon." What? So many things there. So is he just checking to see what is going on with Brooks on the ground with his foot, or is he kicking the crap out of him to be abusive and say he got him? Be very interesting. No, I haven't seen anything on that, but you're just claiming that he's running up and kicking the crap out of him, and that Officer Brosnan is holding him down while he pleads for life. Is that really the case? They were just assaulted. Is he not just making sure he's restrained? And there are reports that he administered aid. So I'm really confused on what exactly is going on here. One story makes these officers look like they're beating the crap out of a guy they just shot while he's dying on the ground. And the other makes it sound like, they were trying to help and get aid there the way they're supposed to when someone gets shot. So very interesting reports on that. The other thing that bothers me from this is the GBI, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, said they're trying to go through and get all the information, conduct a thorough analysis with impartial bias onto the details, just get the facts and present them all. They're not done with their investigation, and these charges are being presented. They said they didn't know that Howard was going to press these charges yet. They were still working on completing their investigation and publishing the findings. Why would you rush to charge these officers for something, and especially something that carries the death penalty, felony murder, when they're not even done with their investigation? It seems like it's being done to appease a certain mob that is out in the streets advocating that this man face the worst sentence possible. And we've seen this a lot recently, too. They try to up the charges on Derek Chauvin in the killing of George Floyd. Now, it went from manslaughter to second degree, and they were even pushing for first degree murder. Are you trying to tell me that in that case, that you're trying to bump it all the way up to the fact, or to the point where you're saying it's premeditated? Do you have enough evidence to support that? We see this a lot with these instances of these police shootings and killings of people by police officers. It doesn't matter what actually happened to people. They just want the harshest sentence possible, no matter what happened. Because an officer shot or just killed someone, it's automatically deemed worthy of the freaking death penalty in this case. And that's insane. People are acting on emotions, and it's scary to see people responding with their emotions in this case. I don't know what's going on with the DA's office there, but the Georgia Bureau of Investigation was still completing, the investigation and uncovering different things about it. So it's a little scary that they come to the decision that quick. To continue, the district attorney mentioned that Brosnan will be a witness for the state in the case. However, his attorney told 11 Alive that Brosnan has not agreed to be a state's witness and has not agreed to plead guilty. The attorney also said that Brosnan did render aid at the scene, and that's the reports we heard at the beginning too. Later in an interview, they said that are stunned that their client is facing charges and that her client has also suffered a concussion during the encounter. Yeah, the officers were punched in the face, knocked to the ground. You can see from the encounter on the body cams, the dash cams, the Wendy's footage, all this stuff happening. So Howard presented photographs from the night of the shooting and pointed out the angles and the distance of Brooks from the officers at the time the shots were fired. He said, after Brooks was shot, Rolfe stated, "I got him." That doesn't indicate anything. That's just saying that you hit him, he's down. Howard said Rolfe was aware that once a taser is fired twice, which he said it was, it becomes inoperable. Again, from the time he, punched the officer in the face, gets up, starts running, do you know how many times the taser has been fired? Is that processing in your head when someone whips and points something at you and you just had an altercation on the ground? Like I said, there's so many things going on right there. You think that the officer was like, oh yeah, so I saw him, he grabbed the taser, not my partner's gun, just got the taser, and he did fire it twice. Okay, and the amount of time it takes to process all of that, and in the meantime, Brooks is just going like that. It's such a small window to react, and the officer did. Now, whether or not more training could have, led him to make a better decision there, that's another discussion to be had. But that doesn't lead to, in felony murder charge from that. They say it is my hope that justice will be served not only for the family of Mr. Brooks, but for the victims and families of other use of force cases waiting to be resolved by the district attorney. My condolences and prayers remain with family of Mr. Brooks as well as other families waiting justice. You know who also deserves justice is Officer Rolfe, Officer Brosnan. It needs to be handled the right way and handled appropriately. Is there some form of punishment that needs to be dealt out? I don't know. Possibly. With these situations with reaction time and stuff like that and procedure, to me it seems like they followed procedure all the way up to the point of arrest where they were doing that and did that the right way, so I didn't see any problems there. I don't know, I'm not a law enforcement officer. When you're punched and knocked out and someone steals one of your weapons, that can cause harm and lead to even potential more harm. If he does get you with a taser, maybe he did steal a gun from you. And you make all these decisions in the matter of seconds. And if you try to put yourself in that scenario, don't look at it like outside, like, oh, I would have totally made a different decision there, because you're seeing the whole thing play out on video. You know what happens next in the future because you've already seen the video. When you put yourself in that scenario, you're like, oh, I would react like this, this, and this because this is what happened. That officer is living that moment. He's experiencing that in real time and has to make these decisions. And if there's punishment that goes along with that, endangering people in nearby cars, not necessarily needing to use lethal force on the guy, whatever, but to say it's completely unjustified and that this is an absolute terrible cop that deserves the death penalty, I do not get that from this at all. That seems completely unreasonable and irresponsible, and it's scary because it seems like we're taking, the justice system and the way things should be handled and turning it into another politicized event to appease mobs of people, and people are just taking over these types of things. It's very scary. We're going to see a lot of crazy riots and stuff from this, no doubt. Whichever way it goes, you're going to have angry people on either side. You're going to have people like me and others who will be absolutely pissed off if this guy gets the death penalty and the felony murder charge sticks. Like, there's going to be a lot of people, including myself, who do not agree with that. There are also going to be a lot of people that are pissed off and angry if it doesn't stick, because they want his head on a platter. They are mad. They want, and it's acting based off emotion. It's not looking at the situation. If you watch that entire encounter and you still believe that that guy deserves the death penalty for that, then you need to do some serious self-examination, because that is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And you have issues being honest with yourself if that's the case. But that's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, like I said, I'll keep you updated on this story and other stories regarding, these police killings and whatnot. But if you liked it, leave a like, subscribe. We'll keep you posted. And other than that, you guys have a good one. We'll see you next time.